Welcome to Monologue Dialogue, the show where we press pause on the plot and focus on the words that hit hardest. From the spotlight to the silver screen, we break down pop culture's most iconic monologues, what they mean, how they work, and why we can't stop thinking about them. I'm Paul Nicolosi, and today we're stepping into the sleek, blood-soaked world of American Psycho, where business cards are sacred, routines are ritual, and identity, well, that's the question, isn't it? In a book soaked in blood, brand names, and brutal satire, one moment stands starkly still. It's a confession, not to a priest, not to the police, but to the void. Patrick Bateman, our unreliable narrator, finally reveals something, or maybe nothing at all. We're talking about Patrick Bateman's confession, a monologue that becomes one of the most haunting lines in both literature and film. You've probably heard it. There is an idea of Patrick, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me. I am simply not there. It's the literary equivalent of a blank stare behind a perfect smile. And today, we're unpacking what makes this moment so unforgettable, both in Bret Easton Ellis's novel and Mary Herron's cult classic film adaptation starring Christian Bale. Let's begin with the novel. In the American Psycho book, this monologue hits late. After we've seen Patrick Bateman at his most violent, most polished, and most detached, it's buried in a chapter that reads almost like a spiral. His mental state is fraying, the narrative unreliable, and then suddenly it's quiet, still. And then this. There's an idea of Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me, only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there. Let that sink in. This moment appearing toward the end of the novel is Bateman's existential unraveling. For a man who has meticulously curated his image from his skincare routine to his suit labels, this is the first honest thing he says, that there is nothing underneath. This isn't just nihilism, it's identity erosion. This isn't a confession of guilt, it's a confession of absence. Bateman isn't saying he's lost his soul, he's saying he never really had one. That everything people see, the expensive suit, the charming smile, the Wall Street status, is just a well-crafted mask. Underneath it all, nothing. Just an empty suit moving through the motions. And that, in itself, is the horror. Now, let's pivot to the 2000 film adaptation, directed by Mary Herron and starring Christian Bale. The film includes this version of the monologue, pitch perfect and unaltered from the source material. It is delivered during a quiet, eerie scene, with Bateman looking at himself in the mirror as he removes a facial peel, one of his many self-preserving, or perhaps self-masking, routines. Mary Herron made the choice to present this side of Patrick in his apartment of the American Gardens building. Not only is this setting in direct contrast to the chaotic hustle and bustle of New York City's cafes, the circumstances of Ellis's novel, but it is presented by Bale in some of his earliest lines in the film. In the book, Bateman's words come from the depths of a man who might be losing his grip on reality, or perhaps never had one. The prose is introspective, cold, abstract. Bret Easton Ellis uses Bateman's internal monologue as a vehicle for satire and horror, a condemnation of consumer culture and the soullessness it breeds. As for Patrick Bateman himself, he is distant, only fully grasping his nature much later into the narrative. In the film, he's eerily self-aware, seemingly before we even meet him. And Christian Bale nails the tone. Not remorseful, not panicked, just void, as if he's reading someone else's obituary. He injects just a hint of vulnerability, something the book is too cynical to allow. It's not a confession, it's a warning, a quiet scream behind a perfect smile. So, let's dig in. Why does this monologue hit so hard? It's the moment where the satire sharpens. Up until now, Bateman has been a caricature, a yuppie obsessed with routines, designer labels, and violent outbursts. But this monologue reframes the story. It's not about what he does. It's about what he isn't. And maybe that's the most terrifying part. This monologue isn't just about a man. It's about a society that prioritizes image over substance, polish over personality, and performance over humanity. Bateman is the ghost in the Armani suit, the specter born of Wall Street excess and emotional bankruptcy. In that way, the monologue isn't just about Bateman. It's about the world he lives in, and maybe the one we live in as well. Whether it's Ellis's prose or Herron's adaptation, this monologue is a thesis statement in disguise. Bateman tells us he's not real, and in doing so, he becomes the most honest person in the story. Far from the unreliable narrator he's come to be known as, his confession is not a plea for help. It's not really even a confession. It's a mirror held up to a society where appearance is identity. And that mirror, it's polished to a high gloss. So the next time you see that quote floating around online, I simply am not there, know this, it's not just eerie, it's prophetic. It's the echo of a man who's been consumed by his own reflection. Up next, we'll be introducing you to my co-host of Monologue Dialogue, Marco Saldana. Be sure to stick around, and if you haven't done so yet, consider giving us a like or subscribing. Episodes release weekly. Your feedback is important to us. Be sure to comment with your own favorite monologue or pop culture so we can keep the dialogue going. So, once again, you are listening to Monologue Dialogue, the podcast that covers monologues in pop culture, whether it be music, musicals, theatrical plays, cinema, that sort of thing. We get into the deeper meaning behind the words and the narrative that's being presented. And joining me today is my very good friend, Marco Saldana. Marco, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience? The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Paul. Good evening to you. Well, my name is Marco Saldana. I don't know, where do you want me to start with personal history or just take it from in the beginning there was darkness?
In the beginning there was Marco Saldana. And Spot, he was happy.
All right. Well, my family is from Brownsville, Texas. That's, on the border by the sea. Any further south and you're in Mexico. Grew up there. My mother's side is a little mix of both across the borders. My father's side for sure is from across the border. But little is known about my father's family. We know that they originated from somewhere in ranches of Mexico, but what is known is on my mother's side, which they originate from Salina Cruz, Oaxaca, which is a very coastal state. Very nice place. But yeah, I am the eldest of two others, three total. Born into a world of responsibility. Um, Went to school all my life in Brownsville, Texas. High school, college. Went into nursing. Um, been in the medical field ever since high school, to be honest with you. Did all that health science technology stuff. And I originally wanted to do radiology, didn't have the math scores for it. Go figure. But nursing, no, it turns out nursing was my true calling. Graduated in 2011 with my BSN. Went off to Austin. Everybody in a small town likes to go to Austin.
Yeah,
And
we all try Austin at least once in our lives.
exactly, yeah, at least once. I was lived there for about 5 years. A year into living the Austin life, I said, you know what? I'm gonna live out my dream and join the army. Pursued a commission. Got a commission as an officer in the Nurse Corps. Uh, 2012, December 15th, 2012, and might have been December 5th. I mixed those dates. But yeah, no, everything else after that, military. That's where I met the great Paul Nicolosi a few years later. I know, be still my beating heart.
Stop, you're embarrassing me.
Oh my gosh.
So, I'm really excited that you're here with me to discuss this because it's not necessarily about the narrative, it's about the deeper meaning. What was the artist who wrote the narrative or the actor who portrayed the narrative? What were they trying to say with this particular piece? And I think there's a lot of rich lore and history involved in that, and of course the emotional connection to seeing a brilliant performance is truly what moves me personally. And as it turns out, you're kind of a nerd for that too, as well as a history nerd. And I know enough to get in trouble. So, uh, well, why don't we go ahead and move on into some of these harder hitting questions that I may have sprung on you last minute. I'm sorry about that.
Already, we're gonna move into it. All right.
Hey, got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. And
So, what's your personal connection with Monologue? Did any specific one make you fall in love with storytelling or acting or theater or cinema in general?
well, when you first asked me, or when you first told me that we were going to be covering monologues, it was kind of a, oh, what, and out of just nowhere, and it made me really put me on the spot to think, because there's so many good movies out there with some really good monologues and decent speeches overall. Now, what I like, particular ones that I like the most are the villain ones. My two favorite happen to be from A Few Good Men, Jack Nicholson, Colonel Jessup. Yeah, that
Yeah.
courtroom scene.
You're
Yeah,
making me want to
yeah,
do an impression, and you and I both know I'm bad
yeah.
at impressions.
Do you want the truth? All that good stuff. It was a good one, right?
You
The
want
more
me on
recent.
that wall. You need me on that wall.
It's a classic, you know.
Absolutely.
That one is one of my favorite ones, and then the more recent one that I personally liked the most was the Joaquin Phoenix's The Joker when he's being interviewed by Ra. Oh my gosh, help me out here.
Use your words. I believe in you.
Well, it's
Oh,
not
oh,
Not Robert Downey Jr.
Robert De Niro.
What's Robert De Niro when he's being interviewed by Robert De Niro.
Yeah, yeah.
If I had them
My
all right there,
my Italian's coming out. I have it. Yeah, no,
So, but no, when he's being interviewed, and then Joaquin Phoenix starts to say, "You're terrible, Murray." He was on the Murray Show. That's the one.
sure.
You know,
Yeah,
and you just see him slowly give into the dark side and just slowly commit to this villainous side of him, and the way he just portrays society that turned him into this thing, and then boom, it just blows the guy's brains. quite the quite the speech, quite the climax, you would say, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a punchline. I would,
Yeah.
Buntis. Moving on, why do you think monologues have such an enduring impact in pop culture? And when I mean this, do I mean is it the writing, the delivery, or is it something deeper for you?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if it's exactly the pop culture at a point in time, but the writing and definitely the delivery that gives it a deeper meaning. Um, Everybody goes through stuff at a point in time in their lives. Now, you might not remember the times per se, but you remember that point in time. One of my favorite movie lines was Kingdom of Heaven. It came out, I don't know, about 2002, 2003
Is
ish.
that the Alexander the Great one? Or am I
Yeah.
thinking of no? Oh man,
Oh yeah, no,
I have a
it
great
had a
list.
Orlando Bloom in it and a few other really good characters. But towards the end of the movie, you have basically Muslim and Christian adversaries who are now, I guess, what you could say, friends at the end of a great battle. And the Muslim asks Orlando Bloom, "Hey, and if God didn't love you, how could you have done all that you have done?"
Mm,
And it was just one of those lines. And for me, at that point in time, I was going through particular spiritual turmoil, so to speak. And that particular movie had so many great lines that just kind of stuck with me because of that point in time. So it's definitely the delivery of the actor. It just shows their skill, how to portray human emotion. But ultimately, for me, what makes a great monologue stick with you is a point in time in your life when you're going through something. And that movie, just like a good song, you know, speaks to you.
For which monologue stands out to you the most iconic of all time, and why?
The Colonel Jessup, that courtroom, in A Few Good Men. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. Just that tirade that he goes on. The anger, and I believe they caught it all on one take. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
Which is impressive. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Just in one go. And just the fact that he was able to nail it. Oh, no, 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 not all in one take, but they did it so much, so often that just poor Jack Nicholson was exhausted by the end.
I'd
It's
imagine.
crazy.
I'd imagine. As far as villain monologues, was there a specific one that truly gripped you? If it has to be a toss up between Colonel Jessup from A Few Good Men and the Joker, uh, or another one, which one really stands out to you?
Oh, man. I gotta say Colonel Jessup is my favorite one, because just the way he was going on at that power trip and the way he just did not like being talked down to. He did not like explaining himself. And in the end, I mean, if you really think about it, he thought he had done right. Killing a kid.
Yeah.
Terrible, right? Yeah, killing off the weak link.
Killing
But I mean, in his mind, yeah, I know. I mean, trimming the herd there.
sure.
But for him, he was, justified in all of his actions. And you see this guy that God knows what he had done throughout his military career to rise up to that level. And then in that movie, I don't know if you recall, but he was being considered for a prestigious position within the Pentagon. So if he had done that to one guy, and let's just say there's a few others, because usually there's more than one skeleton, imagine what he could have done at a even higher level of power.
Yeah, and that's probably the truly scariest part of that. Like if I were to compare the Joker to Colonel Jessup, which is like apples to oranges, right? The Joker is
Yeah,
scary,
yeah, yeah.
but it's fiction, and it's very hard fiction to overcome, right? Whereas Colonel
Yeah.
Jessup, I'm not gonna get into the military
He's real.
history and all that fun
He's
stuff.
real.
He's real.
You've seen it.
Those people
Yeah,
exist. There are
they do.
people who see that film, see that portrayal, and say, "That's me." And you're damn right. You need me on that wall. Like they wear it as a badge of honor. And the
Yeah.
entire message just completely washes beyond them. Like it passes over them, and they can't come to terms with how terrible they can be. So I agree
It's
with you.
true.
I agree with you. Colonel Jessup is far more scary, far more gripping. And looking back on it, I mean, we look back on A Few Good Men and we're just like, it's a boring courtroom drama. No, it's not. No, it is.
Oh, yeah.
It is
It happens.
fascinatingly gripping, and it had
Yeah.
an impactful message. And that's probably one we're gonna have to talk more about.
Yeah, we're gonna have to dig into that one.
Yeah. All right. A movie made before 1980. I know it's a tough one. You got to put on your thinking cap.
Actually, I do have one, but it's not from American cinema.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was from the golden age, the latter half of the golden age of Mexican cinema. And if you've never seen Mexican cinema, it's all black and white. And it was called Marcelino Panivino. It's about an orphan boy.
Mm.
And quite literally, his thing, just like Jesus at the Last Supper with, wine and the bread. And there's the ending where the protagonist, Marcelino, the little kid, uh, he without giving all of the plot of the movie, but he's literally talking to God, but he doesn't know it's God.
It came out before 1980. They've had time to not be spoiled.
so it's just the way God is speaking to him, and trying to explain how the things are in the world. And then at the end of the movie, you just kind of see, the kid transitioning and leaving this world. Literally, he's with God, and the monks bust in to find him gone in front of a statue figure of, Jesus on the cross. It's just but I remember distinctly, because I grew up on the border, and it was real common to get those Mexican channels. And that movie, Marcelino Panivino, it's very pretty. It hits you in the feels, and it's just a show. I mean, a movie about innocence. Real true innocence, and it hurts. And, it's a really good movie.
So let's go ahead and close it out. What should people pay more attention to when they're watching a great monologue? Is it body language, pacing, subtext, whole package? What are you looking for there?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of the whole package. The subtext, you could pick up on the subtext with the emotion. You could pick up on the subtleties of the gestures. The one that I come back to was you think Colonel Jessup, but now the Joker and Joaquin Phoenix. He starts off all happy, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden it comes out. Just it turns. You got to watch those little nuances, those little bits. That's what makes a great monologue. Great monologue. Just the emotion that comes out.
And that about wraps it up for today's episode of Monologue Dialogue. If Bateman's hollow voice gave you something to think about, or you're suddenly questioning your own reflection just a little, well then, mission accomplished. If you enjoyed this deep dive into American Psycho, or perhaps you want to see more of my charming banter with Marco, don't forget to subscribe and share. I'm Paul Nicolosi, here to remind you, sometimes the scariest monsters wear the best suits.